On the 20th of February 1997, John Deacon walked off a stage at the Brit Awards in London and never walked onto another one. He was 45 years old. He had been the bassist of Queen for 26 years since February 1971, when he joined a band that was playing small venues and arguing about what they were trying to become. He had played bass on every Queen album, had written some of the most commercially successful songs in the band's catalog, had stood on stages with Freddie Mercury in front of 300,000 people in Buenos Aires and in front of 120,000 at Nebworth and at Live Aid, in front of a global television audience of nearly 2 billion. He has not performed publicly since the 20th of February 1997. He has not given an interview since. He has not been photographed in a willing or planned way since. He has not recorded with Queen or with anyone else. He has declined every offer: the Queen plus Paul Rodgers tours, the Queen plus Adam Lambert tours, every tribute concert, every anniversary event, every invitation to appear in any capacity in the world that was once the world he lived in. His only explanation, given through friends and colleagues rather than in his own words, was this: Queen was Freddie Mercury. Without Freddie Mercury, there is no Queen. He went home. He has stayed there. And for more than 26 years, nobody outside his immediate family and circle of close friends has heard from him directly. The quietest exit in the history of rock music. John Deacon has been described, across the 30 years of Queen's active history, in terms that consistently position him as the quiet one, the bass player, the technician, the bandmate who stood to the side and let Freddie Mercury and Brian May occupy the center of every frame. This description is accurate in the limited way that accurate descriptions are limited. It describes the surface correctly while missing the substance. John Deacon wrote "Another One Bites the Dust." He wrote "I Want to Break Free." He wrote "You're My Best Friend." He wrote the bass line for "Under Pressure," the line that John Deacon played in a jam at Mountain Studios in 1981 that became one of the most recognizable opening bars in the history of recorded music. He wrote "Spread Your Wings." He was the last member to join Queen in February 1971 at the age of 19, and he arrived quietly shy, technically excellent, not interested in the theatrical ambition of the others in the same way, but absolutely committed to the music. He made the music. He made some of its most enduring and most commercially successful parts. And when the music was over, when the person he had made it with was gone, he was the one who understood most completely that the music was over. The Brit Awards performance on the 20th of February 1997 was part of a tribute to David Bowie, who was receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award. Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon performed together, the three surviving members of Queen, together on a stage for what would turn out to be the last time any of them would be on a stage with John Deacon. The performance was not a Queen headline show. It was not a large production with the full apparatus of a Queen concert. It was a brief appearance at an awards ceremony. The specific quality of what it was for John Deacon, whether he knew at the time that it would be the last time, whether the decision to leave had already been made before that evening or was made afterward, is not known. He has not said. What is known is that he walked off that stage and did not walk onto another one, and that the 6 years between Freddie Mercury's death in November 1991 and the Brit Awards in February 1997 had been, for John Deacon, a process of arriving at a conclusion that Brian May and Roger Taylor did not arrive at, and that John Deacon concluded was the only honest one. Brian May did not retire. He tours with Queen plus Adam Lambert and plays the Red Special in stadiums, and has said he will keep going. Roger Taylor did not retire. He plays drums in arenas and has said the music requires continuing. John Deacon retired. He went home in 1997 and has stayed there. Three people who lost the same person, three different conclusions about what comes after. John Deacon's conclusion was the quietest and the most absolute and possibly the most honest. Queen was Freddie Mercury. He has lived that sentence for 26 years. The 6 years between Freddie Mercury's death and John Deacon's retirement were the 6 years of Made in Heaven, the last Queen album, assembled from Freddie Mercury's final recordings and completed between 1993 and 1995. John Deacon participated. He played bass on the arrangements. He sat in studios where Freddie Mercury's voice played through the speakers and added bass lines to music the voice was directing from beyond the sessions. He made the music. He played his bass. When the album was done and the continuation of Queen as a working entity began to be discussed, John Deacon made the decision Brian May and Roger Taylor did not make. He had done what Freddie asked to be done. The last wish was honored. There was nothing left he could do in that world that Freddie Mercury was not there to receive. Robert Awai was a college friend of John Deacon's and a musical collaborator. They had worked together on John Deacon's limited musical activities outside Queen. He is one of the few people who has spoken publicly about John Deacon's decision to retire and the reasons behind it. He said in the specific words that have circulated in the years since, Freddie's death affected him badly. Maybe he thought, Freddie was the band, so what's the point? These two sentences are the most complete explanation of John Deacon's retirement that exists in the public record. They are two sentences of speculation from someone close to him, not a statement from John Deacon himself. John Deacon himself has made no statement, but the speculation contains, by the account of everyone who knew him well, an accuracy that exceeds what most direct statements achieve. Freddie was the band. So what's the point? This is not a melodramatic conclusion. It is an honest assessment of what Queen was and what it could be after the thing at its center was gone. To understand what John Deacon left behind when he retired in 1997, it helps to understand what he had made in the 26 years before. Another one bites the dust, the song that Michael Jackson told Freddie Mercury had to be released as a single. The song that went to #1 in the United States in 1980 was John Deacon's song. The bass line, the structure, the groove that made it unlike anything else in Queen's catalog. His I Want to Break Free, one of Queen's most loved songs, the video in which all four members dressed in drag, and which caused the song to be banned from rotation on MTV in America because of the video's content, was John Deacon's song. You're My Best Friend, the song with the piano line that Roger Taylor has described as one of the most immediately recognizable in rock John Deacon song, written on a Wurlitzer electric piano. The bass line in Under Pressure, which John Deacon played in a jam, and which neither he nor anyone else in the room knew, was one of the most recognizable sounds in the history of recorded music. He wrote these things, he played the bass at every concert, and then he went home. Another one bites the dust. His I Want to Break Free. His You're My Best Friend. His the bass line Under Pressure. His the bass line that has been in every stadium on earth since 1981, that was sampled by Vanilla Ice in 1990 and resulted in a legal settlement. That is one of the most immediately recognizable sounds in the history of popular music. John Deacon played it in a jam on an afternoon in Montreux and did not know what it was. He went home in 1997. The song stayed. John Deacon has been in retirement for more than 26 years, longer than the entire period from Queen's formation to Freddie Mercury's death. He has not given a single interview. He has not made a single public appearance in the context of music. Brian May and Roger Taylor have appeared on his behalf, accepting awards, making statements, and the quality of these appearances, which always acknowledge his absence with careful tenderness, suggests the other two understand and respect the decision even if they made a different one. John Deacon is alive. He is in good health as far as public information extends. He is simply not there. He decided in 1997 that there was nothing left for him in that world, and the decision has not changed. Brian May has spoken about John Deacon's retirement with care and restraint that mirrors John Deacon's own absence. He does not press the subject. He has said John Deacon feels Queen was Freddie Mercury and that he respects that. He has said the door is always open if John Deacon ever wants to rejoin, without any suggestion that he expects this. The door is open in the way a door is kept open for someone who has made a final decision. Not as an active invitation, but as a form of respect. Brian May plays another one, Bites the Dust, and I Want to Break Free in stadiums without the person who wrote them. And he does not speak about this with anything that sounds like an accusation. There is something in John Deacon's retirement that deserves to be examined without sentimentality or melodrama, the specific honesty of it. Brian May and Roger Taylor have continued to perform as Queen. They do so with the full understanding that what they are doing is not Queen, as it was that the configuration of Queen plus Adam Lambert is not the same as the configuration of Queen with Freddie Mercury. They have said this themselves. Adam Lambert has said this himself. The audience understands this. What they are doing is performing the music of Queen with a vocalist who honors it in the full awareness that the original thing cannot be reproduced. This is one honest response to the loss of Freddie Mercury. John Deacon's response was a different, honest response. The original thing cannot be reproduced. Therefore, the original thing is over. Therefore, there is nothing for him to do. Both responses are honest. Both responses are based on the same understanding of what Queen was and what it cannot be without Freddie Mercury. They simply arrive at different conclusions about what follows from that understanding. Brian May's conclusion: the music continues in a different form because the music is larger than any single configuration of people. John Deacon's conclusion: the music continues, but I am not part of it, because my part in it was inseparable from the person who is gone. Both of these are honest. Both of them are the same loss, arriving at different destinations. John Deacon arrived at his destination in 1997 and has stayed there. His conclusion has not changed. The music has not required him to change it. The music John Deacon made continues without him. Another one, Bites the Dust, is played at Queen Plus Adam Lambert concerts by a bass player who is not John Deacon, and 70,000 people sing along. I Want to Break Free is played. You're My Best Friend. The bass lines John Deacon wrote are present at every Queen concert. John Deacon is not. He is at home in Surrey and has been for 26 years, and the music continues to be heard by people who may or may not know his name, may or may not know that the bass lines they respond to were written by a man who decided in 1997 that there was nothing left to do after Freddie was gone. John Deacon's retirement is, in its own way, one of the most complete statements about what Freddie Mercury meant that anyone has made. It is not the statement of someone who is performing grief or managing a public image or making a commercial decision. It is the statement of someone who assessed the situation honestly and arrived at the conclusion that was correct for them. That what they had been part of was defined by a specific person, and that without that person, the specific thing was over, and that continuing without that person in a way that called itself the same thing was not something they were willing to do. This is a form of love. It is the form that says, the thing I loved was defined by you, and I will not pretend the definition has changed. Brian May and Roger Taylor's form of love says, the thing I loved continues through the music, and I will carry it. Both are real. Both are forms of keeping faith with what Freddie Mercury was. John Deacon went home. He has kept faith in the quietest possible way. He wrote another one, Bites the Dust, and I Want to Break Free, and You're My Best Friend, and the bass line for Under Pressure. He played bass at every concert Queen ever gave. He made Made in Heaven and honored Freddie Mercury's last wish. And then he went home and has never come back. His conclusion has not changed. His absence is a statement. The statement is, Queen was Freddie Mercury, and the statement has been made for 26 years without a single word. John Deacon left the stage on the 20th of February 1997 and never came back. He was 45 years old. He had been the bassist of Queen since he was 19. He had written songs that a billion people know. He had played the bass line that is in every stadium on earth. He had honored the last wish of the person he played with for 20 years. And then he went home. The door that Brian May keeps open is still open. John Deacon has not walked through it and shows no indication of walking through it, and the 26 years of that closed door is itself a complete sentence about what Queen was and who Freddie Mercury was to the person who understood, perhaps most clearly of the three who remained, exactly what the band had lost when it lost him. Queen was Freddie Mercury. John Deacon said this once through the people around him and has been saying it ever since with every year that passes. There is no Queen. He went home. He stayed. And the music plays without him, the way it plays without Freddie Mercury, still the music, still present, still heard, carrying the specific absence of the people who made it inside every note.